Welcome to Ramp. This is the expense management setup and walkthrough, also known as the Ramp 101. So we're going to go through everything you need to set up your account, issue cards, invite people to your team, reimbursements, how those work out. So a lot of fun stuff that we'll cover in the next few minutes here. So first things first, I want to start in the setup guide. This is in the top left corner of your account, and it's basically a checklist for onboarding, different things to make sure you're completing, learning about and understanding how the entire Ramp functionality works. A couple specific things I want to point out here is one, you can visit the Help Center directly from this page, so you can read Help Center articles, watch other videos much like this one. And then also our virtual community forum. I highly encourage you to go check that out. You can ask questions, you can post in threads, you can meet other customers, and you can even provide feedback and wish list requests to our product team. So great place, and would love to see you in the community forum. Okay. Next thing we're going to go to is expenses. So if you're following along in your own account, on this gray bar over here, I've just clicked expenses. Great. So this expenses page, specifically the transactions tab, this is going to give you the most comprehensive overview of basically everything in your account, but primarily your real-time spend. So who is spending, where they're spending, all of that's going to live on this page. You'll see your current balance right here. So that's how much your team has spent so far in the given month. And that comes out of your total business limit. That's this number over here. So for me, in my fake account, that's $2 million that my team has to spend in the given month. You'll see when your next statement payment is due. For me, that's December 14th. That date is set 30 days from when you make your first transaction. So let's say I made my first transaction on November 14th. That payment is going to be due December 14th. I can change that date if I'd rather it be the first of the month or the last of the month or whatever day best aligns with when I pay my bills. I can pay that off on December 14th and then reach out to Ramp support team and they'll help me change it. If I have any cash back, that'll show up here. We'll talk about that in just a second. Now I'm going to click this green yellow payments button in the top right. Okay, so you'll see your current balance here again. You'll also notice we have $1,800 of pending transactions, and they're pending, so they have the potential to change. Until they become cleared or posted, you don't actually owe them. So right now, in this very given moment, I don't owe that amount, but once it's cleared, it'll be reflected in my current balance. If I want to make a manual payment, I can do so right here by clicking that Make Manual Payment button. And now I'm going to scroll down to this payment history section. So here I'm going to see all of my manual payments, any automatic payments, and then any cash back that I've redeemed, that's going to show up here as well. Speaking of cash back, you'll earn cash back on every card transaction, which is pretty sweet. It adds up and then it becomes available. In your accounts, you could click this Redeem Cashback button. And I would say the most common way people redeem it is helping pay down your monthly statement balance. So just going directly back into your business, helping pay what you owe Ramp. But when you click redeem, you can see the other rewards and incentives you can cash it in for. Okay, last thing in this section right here is the ability to enable early automatic payments. And this is a great option if you're having a really high spend month and you're worried you're going to reach that total business limit, or if your limit's not quite where you want it to be and you need to spend more, this would be for you. Anything that requires peace of mind that you're not going to reach your total business limit, because if you do, you can't make any new transactions, it can't be exceeded. So I'm going to click Setup right here. And then I get this option of a drop-down bar with 50, 60, 70, 80%. Let's go with 70%. So I've clicked that. This now means when I reach 70% of my total business limit, so for me, that's that 70% of $2 million, these funds are going to be automatically pulled from my company's linked bank account. The easiest, best way that I think to think about this and explain it is that it's not increasing your credit limit from $2 million to like $3 or $4 million. But by having these funds extracted mid-month, it resets you to zero so you can spend more. So in total, once you reset it and then keep spending, maybe reset again, keep spending, whatever it is, in total, you can spend more than your total business limit. But again, this is optional. So if you don't want to enable this, you don't have to. Okay, a few more things in the transactions page. If you want to see all of your monthly statement history, you can click statements right here and you would see all of yours. My account's fake, so I only see this one, but you would see all of your actual statement history. And then scrolling down to look at the actual transactions. So we're going through all of these. These are all of my transactions. Some of them are still pending. Many of them have been cleared already. We have a lot of them though. We have 1,100 transactions, and that's a lot. If you're looking for something that happened a while ago or a small charge or a one-off charge, how do you find it? You can click this add filter button and narrow down this list by all of these methods. So you can search by a specific dollar amount. You can search by maybe a specific card holder. You could search by just a department. So maybe you want to see your engineering department, all of their transactions, all these different ways to shrink this page and find the transactions that you're looking for. And then these buttons are great to be aware of as well. You can filter by specific date ranges. So if you just want to see your statement or maybe just yesterday, you can do so. And then this button, you can move around the order of columns if there's something that works better for you. So you can really make this page your own and hopefully make it kind of fun to work out of. All right, moving on to setting. So if you're following along in your own account, we've just clicked on setting. And first things first, if you need to change any of your company settings, you can do so here on this page. But now we're going to be in expense policy. This is the expense policy page. First thing you'll notice here is this expense policy document right here. This is a great option to upload if you have one or you're thinking about making one. And all it is a document outlining your roles and responsibilities of your company cardholders. So basically what's expected of them when they're using your company credit cards, your ramp cards. And by having it posted here, the ramp team will send it out to your team for them to acknowledge and sign. So in theory, if everyone signs it, everyone should be on the same page. There should be a shared understanding, no confusion, no gray area about where or how or when people should spend. So that's a great option to upload. Now we're going to click expense requirements. So I'm in settings, expense policy, expense requirements. Hopefully you're starting to notice, or maybe you have already noticed, that everything on our account, everything in the Ramp platform, the names are meant to make a lot of sense. So expense requirements, that's what's required of your employees when they make an expense. Do they need to submit a receipt? Do they need to submit a memo? Anything else? Is that required of them? Most teams will have probably more than 2 expense policies. You can make them based on departments, you can make them based on teams, maybe different locations. Maybe some workers work in the field and have ever-changing job codes or project codes. Maybe you want to give your CEO the path of least resistance and give him or her a really easy policy. You can set that up here. So I'm going to click into general expenses, just this first one right here. And this is my general expenses expense policy. So I'm saying right now, if someone makes a transaction and their card is tied to this policy, and they make a transaction that's greater than or equal to $75, they'll be required to submit a receipt. That's it. Maybe I also would like them to submit a memo. A memo is just a 1-sentence blurb about what the transaction is for. So I'm going to click add, and then I'm going to click add required field, and now I can choose memo. So I've chosen that. I can hit save and close, and then I can save that workflow. I'll show where we attach these policies to the cards when we go to create cards in just a little bit. But this is all it is. You can make any different workflows based on what you would like people to submit or not submit. But for now, I'm making this workflow. This is just going to apply to regular employees, general miscellaneous expenses, and it's saying if they make a transaction that's greater than or equal to $75, they'll be required to submit a receipt and required to submit a memo. So I'm going to click Save Workflow. Great. And then I can keep making more of these. And also, it's not just setting them up at the beginning. If you find in a few weeks from now, you want to make a different policy or tweak it or make some changes, you can do so. Okay, great. So that's settings, expense policy. I'm just going to point out settings apps right here and not dive into it further. Here you should learn about the different integrations that we have with all of these providers, particularly our Gmail for Business and Outlook for Business integrations. But if you want to learn more about those, we have a specific video dedicated to explaining that integration. But the too long don't read of that is it's a great integration that helps capture receipts seamlessly. So you don't have to do anything. You don't have to submit your receipts. You don't have to screenshot them. You don't have to take photos of them. Gmail for Business and Outlook for Business, these integrations will help capture it for you. So go check out that video and learn about all of our apps and integrations. Okay. Next thing we're going to talk about is people. So if you're following along, I'm navigating to this people section within the grade tab. Okay. This is the people section. You can see all of your employees. You can go by departments. You can view them by location. You can view them by custom groups. So lots of different ways to view everyone. There's also a few different ways to invite people to your team. So I'm going to click invite people in the top right. The first way you can invite people is if you have your HRIS system integrated. You can directly pull in that people information and then send a batch bulk of invites. We have a whole video walking through that HRIS system integration, so go check that out, but I'll just show you where you do it. In my demo account, I have Humans.io connected, so I would click that and then be able to invite all of those people. But definitely go check out our HRIS system integration video if you want to learn more. The other two ways to invite people through Ramp is one, inviting a singular person. When we're inviting an individual person, we have to assign them a role. So these are all the roles that we can assign them. Employee, that's likely the majority of your card holders. That's the individual contributor. They can request cards. They can be issued cards. They can make transactions, of course. They can submit reimbursement requests. But everything that they do is still managed by their manager, which brings me to the manager. Much like in real life, managers are in charge of all of their team's day-to-day, and especially in Ramp, their team's card requests, their team's transactions, their team's reimbursement requests. They also invite people to their teams. Above the manager is the admin, and the admins, they can change all of the settings, they can change all of the roles. So with great power comes great responsibility. Definitely don't make every single person in your company an admin. Be strategic and thoughtful about who you give those responsibilities and powers to. We also have these two roles. So guest user role, that's great for volunteers and contract workers and temporary workers. And then IT admin, that's exactly what it sounds like. And then external accounting firm and bookkeeper. They might look a little different, but they're actually cut from the same cloth. Bookkeeper, that's going to be your internal teammate that needs access to all of your accounting data. And then external accounting firm, I'll click into this box to show you. You would just enter their email address right here. And then from there, you would assign them a role. Now, it's important to note that these people are still external. So your external accounting firm, they're not joining your Ramp team, but you can give them the same permissions and abilities as these roles. However, if you give them admin permissions, they cannot release any funds from your account. That still has to come from a real admin or a real owner. So if money's leaving your account, it has to come from an actual teammate, not your external accounting firm. Okay, the other way to invite people, there's two ways to get here, is inviting multiple people at one time. So I'm in here. The first way, just invite people again, and then upload CSV. And you're brought to this page that says bulk invite via CSV. The other way to get to that exact same spot is clicking these three little dots, clicking bulk invite via CSV, and you're brought to this page where you just follow the steps. Pretty straightforward. You'll just download this template and then fill it out with everyone's information. So it's essentially a giant spreadsheet of all of your people and all of their card information. So you would have Charlotte's first name, Charlotte's last name, Charlotte's email, so on and so forth. And then you would have Charlotte's card information, whatever it might be. You would do that for everyone, and then you would click begin import, and then you would be able to send out a batch bulk of invites. So that's an awesome way to invite more people at once. Okay, I'm going to make an example invitation for you. So I'm going to click invite people, and we'll invite an employee. And let's invite my coworker, Amanda. So I'm just going to type in her email. Let's say we work at a company called Company in the example. It's a fake company. So Amanda at company.com. From there, I would add Amanda's manager, department, and location. So let's say we're looking through all of the managers, and let's say she reports to Calvin, who manages the engineering team. So I can select that. And then when I'm looking through all the departments, I see my options. So we know she reports to Calvin, who manages the engineering team, but let's say she's actually in the IT department. She just reports to Calvin. How do I create a department? I'll show you. I just type it in. So we'll go IT, and then we'll click create. And now when I look at all of my departments, the IT department has now been created. So going forward, I can select that as a department. Location, the way we've set up location and defined it at RAMP is physical, geographic location. So we've chosen US cities as well as London, but location doesn't have to be an actual place. It's just a way to organize and group your team. If you have a different or better way to organize your team, feel free. We just picked actual places. And we have seen some teams who have a lot of remote employees do remote as a location, and then maybe New York City, if that's where your office is. So really whatever works for you here, but for fun, let's put Amanda in, we'll keep her in New York. From there, we would issue her a card. I'm actually going to hold off on this as I'm going to explain cards in about 5 minutes. So hold that thought, we'll get there momentarily. Now I'm going to click send invite, and Amanda will be invited to company.com. Great, so now that invitation has been sent. 2 more things to show in this People tab. If you want to create a department or location directly from this page and not from an invitation, you can click the 3 dots and then click either Create Department or Create Location, and that allows you to do it from the regular People page. Other things to point out, let's find someone to look at. Let's say Braden is currently an employee, but he's getting promoted to manager. How do we change that? I'm going to click anywhere into Braden's profile, and then I'm going to click Edit Profile. And right here where it says Employee, I'm going to click Edit one more time. So we know that Braden's an employee. We want to make him a manager. How do we do that? We click Manager. We click Save Changes. And now when I go back to look at Braden's profile, he's now a manager. So changes like that are updated immediately. Same thing goes if I need to change his department or manager or anything like that. I can click Edit Profile. And in this account settings box, I can change his manager. Let's put him on Calvin's team. Department, let's send him to Amanda's IT department. And we'll keep him in New York. And then from there, we'll click Save Changes again. And those updates change automatically. So super easy to change people's roles, promote people internally, as well as changing their department, location, and managers. Okay, so that's the people section. Next thing we're going to move to is cards. So if you're following along in your accounts, over here on the gray tab, I've just clicked on cards. Okay, great. On RAMP, you're going to have physical cards as well as virtual cards. If you've never used virtual cards before, bear with me. I'm going to get you on board. They're very easy to use, and not only will you think they're easy to use, but your teammates will love using them too. So let's scroll through. And we'll look at this SAS card right here. So I'm just going to click anywhere into this card. And this is a virtual card. For those who haven't seen one yet before, this is what it looks like. When I click on it and flip it around, it reveals all the same information that would be on a physical credit card that you can hold in your hands. So it has a 16-digit card number, it has an expiration date, it has a 3-digit CVV number, there's a name on the card, it's Oscar's card, as well as a billing address. Now, the main difference between physical cards and virtual cards is that you can't touch these. They're virtual, so they either live on the computer, on my RAMP platform, which is what we're in right now, or on my phone, on the RAMP app. Definitely recommend downloading the RAMP app. I'll say it again, go download the RAMP mobile app. It makes it really easy to upload receipts, look at your limits, look at what's going on with your cards, all of that when you're out and about. But like I said, virtual cards, you can't touch them. They're online. And then physical cards, that's the one that you're going to hold in your hands. The other difference is that you'll have only one physical card. So it doesn't matter if you are the CEO, if you've been there for 20 years, if you've been there for 1 month, maybe a few days. It doesn't matter. You'll only have one physical card, but you'll likely have multiple virtual cards. The virtual cards are going to all be for online spend. So anything that's super specific online spend. So a SaaS card, maybe this card is used to purchase all of our SaaS subscriptions and software dues online. Maybe you'll have a card for DoorDash or for Amazon if you are the teammate that buys things from those sites. So any online virtual spend, that's going to be a virtual card. The physical card you can use for any in-person purchases. When you make those in-person purchases, they're going to come from specific funds. You don't have to know much about that unless you're the person issuing the funds. But examples of those are like a wellness benefit. So maybe you go to the spa and you use your physical card, so your personal physical card, and that transaction will come from your wellness benefit if that's a fund that you have set up. Or maybe you're taking a trip with your team and you have a fund for that Miami team offsite, whatever it might be. Any transactions such as your flight, your hotel, any transportation while you're in Miami, any meals, that can all come from that Miami travel fund. So, best way to think about it, virtual cards, those are for online spend, always very specific. Physical card, any in-person spending or really anything else. And those will come from specific funds that are allotted to you by your team. If this is still confusing, we're going to walk through some examples together right now. So I'm just going to go up and I'm still on cards over here. Now I'm just clicking issue spend. Now, two things can kind of happen. One, you can go ahead and issue spend to your teammates, but also employees can request funds. So I'll show where they do that as well, but I also go over that in the employee training. So now I'm going to click issue spend. And let's first issue someone a physical card. Maybe it's a new teammate, and I'll show you what this looks like. So we'll click physical card, and then let's find someone that doesn't have one yet. It's kind of like roulette trying to find someone. Okay, we'll make one for Colin. So we're making Colin a physical card. So who's it for? It's for Colin. And what is it for? It's Colin's physical card. So who is it for? What is it for? Now we need an amount, currency, and frequency. So let's say Colin gets maybe just $1,000 every quarter, and this will just be for like miscellaneous transactions, testing out the product, testing out new ramp features, running out to buy a coffee or maybe a quick customer lunch, really just kind of like miscellaneous things for Colin. So who is it for? What is it for? Amount, currency, frequency. From there, hopefully you remember this from 15 minutes ago, but from there we'll attach an expense policy or submission policy. Those are the same thing. So we'll just stick with this general expense policy. And we know that with this policy, Colin will be required to submit a receipt and a memo for any transactions above $75. So we'll attach that. From there, it's a physical card, so it's physically being shipped to Colin. Couple of options here. One, if I don't know Colin's address, I can ask him. Two, I can just send it to the address and type it in if I already know it. And three, I can send it to the office address if Colin works out of the office. So let's stick with the office address. Last thing in this section I'll talk about is this reviews. So right here where it says additional reviews, I'm going to choose my expense approval policy. So you can set up different policies here. Maybe you have one that auto approves. Maybe you have one that requires the manager and the admin to approve it. Maybe you just have one for the manager. I'll just select this for now. So I'm going to require the manager to review and approve all of Colin's transactions on this card. From there, I'm going to confirm that address and then issue that card. Okay, great. So now that card has been issued, it's physically being shipped to Colin at the office. But in the meantime, here's a virtual version if Colin needs to start spending. Like, let's say he can't wait anymore. He needs to use this card today. He can enter this card number and information into whatever website and use it virtually. Now let's make a virtual card together. So let's click Issue Spend. And let's click virtual card. Let's say David is a teammate of mine who is purchasing a subscription for Figma. So he needs a card, a virtual card, very specific use case of spend for Figma. So I'm going to go Figma. We'll just go Figma card to make it easy. But you could call it whatever you want. Figma subscription card, whatever works for you. For this, we'll just go with Figma card. So David is the person purchasing this Figma subscription. From there, let's say the subscription is $10,000 a month. We'll stick with that. So who is it for? What is it for? $10,000 every month. From there, we'll attach that same expense or submission policy. And then in advanced, right here, I'm going to click spending controls and restrictions. Right here where it says restrict categories and merchants, I'm going to click add restrictions. From here, I can either block or allow certain categories. So this is Figma. It's a specific subscription that I'm buying. So maybe I want to block alcohol and bars. Maybe I want to block transportation. Maybe I want to block gambling. A lot of options there. Maybe I make the only allowed category to be dues and subscriptions, whatever it might be. Same thing with merchant restrictions. I can either allow or block certain merchants. In this case, this is what I would do. I could block a bunch of merchants. I could block Netflix and DoorDash and Uber, or I could make Figma the only allowed merchant. So I could select that, and now Figma is the only allowed merchant. So if someone tries to use this card somewhere other than Figma, those transactions will be blocked, declined, they won't go through. So great to prevent against accidents and, accidentally using your Ramp card instead of your personal card, but also helps prevent against any fraudulent charges as well. Hopefully those don't happen, but good to set up these preventative measures. This also allows you to have a lot of control over your employees and exactly how they're spending. By restricting categories or merchants, you're really enforcing people to comply with your expense policies and spend how you want them to be. So we'll give Save Changes a click. And then from there, I'm going to issue that card. So it'll just take a sec to add. Okay, great. And so this makes it even easier. You can click Use on Figma, and that would allow you to use that card on Figma. But as we know, if we click it around, we can look at the card number, the date, all of that. And little insider tip, if you click these boxes, it allows you to copy that card number. So instead of having to write it down or drag across, you can save a couple seconds and just copy it from there. Okay, great. I'm going to quickly hop into my Ramp. And this is where you can either issue funds to your team or your employees can request funds from here. So I'm going to click Issue Funds and just show you what this looks like. Again, this is where you can do it. And then also I want to point out these spin programs down here. So there's some examples of different spin programs that you can create. For example, maybe you make a meals and expenses program, or maybe you make an office supplies program. And then when employees use their physical cards, it can be pulled from whatever funds and programs you set up. So this is kind of tip of the iceberg, but I'll let you look through all of those and figure out how you want your employees to be spending. Okay, so that is cards. We're almost at the end. A few more things I want to point out. Right here is bill pay, and I'm just going to show this tab really quick. We have a dedicated session for bill pay once a week, so definitely come attend that live session or check out the recording on ramp.com/training. But this is a little sneak peek into the bill pay page. And then accounting, same thing. We have that session once a week. I would love to see you at our live session, or if you want to watch the recorded training, we have that too. And this will just walk you through how to set up your accounting integration or importing your chart of accounts into Ramp, and then setting up all these rules to allow you to code your transactions in bulk. Okay, last major thing I want to talk about is reimbursements. So I'm going to click expenses over here in the right. If you're following along, expenses in the gray tab, and then reimbursements. Now, in a perfect world, most of your team's transactions will be on their Ramp cards, but of course, life happens. People forget their cards. You might go to a cash-only restaurant and have to pay out of pocket with cash. You might forget your card and pay out of pocket with your personal card. So we do allow for reimbursements and reimbursement requests. Now, how do you create a reimbursement request? You'll click Create Reimbursement. And then from there, 3 options. 1 is just dragging and dropping in the receipt and then filling out the information. 2 places right here. 1 is if it's an out-of-pocket receipt, you'll just fill out all of this information. So the merchant, the dollar amount, the transaction date, all of that. And then you will click Submit and drop in that receipt as well. And then mileage, this is for gas mileage, so driving to work or work events. Really cool here, you put in the start location, put in the destination, Ramp will calculate that distance from point A to point B and populate it into the reimbursement request. And then fill out the rest of the information, click Submit, and you'll be on your way. So that's how reimbursement requests get submitted. But how do they actually work? So someone will submit the reimbursement request. From there, it's approved by either the admin or the manager. From there, the funds are pulled from the company's linked bank account and sent via ACH payment to the employee's linked bank account. So I'm going to emphasize something. We're going to go to transactions to drive this point home. Reimbursements do not come out of this total business limit. This $2 million that my team has to spend each month, reimbursements do not come out of. So someone submits a reimbursement request, it gets approved by either admin or manager. The funds are pulled from the company's linked bank account and sent via ACH payment to the employee's linked bank account. As an approver, as a reviewer, you have 2 places to do so. 1 is in expenses, reimbursements, needs review. You can just directly approve and pay them out from here. So let's approve David's. We'll be receiving that payment via ACH. If I want to reject one, I can click these 3 little dots and click Reject Request, and then provide a reason for the rejection. So this goes against company policy, and then I can reject that reimbursement request. The other place that you can approve or reject reimbursements is the inbox. Now, managers and admins, this inbox is going to be your best friend. This will allow you to see everything that requires your immediate attention and streamline your entire workflow. So everything that you need to approve or flag or reject, you can do from the inbox. So your team's card requests, you can either approve or reject those from here. Your team's transactions, you can approve or flag those here in the transaction section. And then reimbursements, what we're talking about right now, you can approve and pay them out from the inbox. So I can approve or I could reject. So again, inbox, top left, this is going to be your best friend. This will allow you to streamline your workflows, see everything that requires your immediate attention. If it were me, I would come in here every day, probably in the morning, maybe a few times a day, just see what's required of me and not keep people waiting. So that's the inbox. It's a really great tool. Okay, great. So everyone, that is pretty much the 411. That is the Ramp 101. That was the expense management setup and walkthrough. Going to quickly recap what we talked about and then share some additional resources at the end. So in this setup guide here, you can learn all about Ramp, all about our functionality, and you have these great resources of the Help Center, which has Help Center articles, as well as other training videos. Some of them I mentioned in this session. And then you have the virtual community forum. Come hang out there, learn more about Ramp, learn how others are using Ramp and what questions and features they would like to see. Then we talked about expenses and how this whole transactions page is going to give you the most comprehensive overview into all of your team's spend and then the different ways you can pay Ramp. Then we talked about settings and setting up that expense policy here. So basically what's required of your employees when they make transactions. You set that all up here in expense requirements. Then we talked about people and how to invite your team to join you on Ramp, as well as how to change people's roles or departments or locations. Then we talked about cards and kind of the difference between that one physical card you'll have, as well as the funds from what you can spend from, and then the virtual cards for that very specific online spend. So a couple different things, but they all just allow you to streamline your team spend and have complete control over how your employees can spend within Ramp. And then finally, we talked about accounting and bill pay. We gave those quick previews. And then reimbursements. So expenses, reimbursements, how people submit those reimbursement requests, and then how they get approved and paid out. So that's the Ramp 101. That's the expense management and setup walkthrough. Thanks so much, guys, for being here. I hope this was helpful. And if you have any other questions or want to learn more, go to ramp.com/training, check out our help center, check out the other videos, and would love to see you in the virtual community forum. Okay, bye everyone. Take care.